program coordinator. And tonight we're going to talk about Maple Bank Farm, which is a staple in our town, or like my colleague Betty tells me, an institution. We love your super fresh produce, your beautiful seasonal products, the happy people that work there, and of course that you're close by. Here, ladies and gentlemen, here to talk about Maple Bank's long and rich history are the owners, Cathy and Howie Bronson, as well as the manager, Kirby.
Welcome, and as I look around the room, you've all made it possible too. And I'm gonna try not to cry too many times because it's in here. And that's really what it's all about. We're stewards of the land. It's not about owning it. It's about being at one with it. And let me tell you, we are really, really excited about Kirby because we saw when he was really young how that was there. We just needed him to leave for a little while and come back. Thank you, Kirby.
There's not, the first 150 years, there's not a lot of information. But Cathy has, because Cathy has information from her parents, a little bit from her grandparents, a little bit from her great-grandfather, and after that it gets pretty vague. But you can start with.
So back in 1730, and my sister's here and my daughter's here, and they're going to step in anytime that they're ready. But it was really a time of everyone that lived in this area. It was really subsistence type farming, and that meant really more animal based, and that people raised their own animals and their milk, and they made cheese and they made butter and they had pigs and they did a lot of bartering. There was tobacco that was raised here, and chickens, not as many chickens as it ended up being, but it's
and they grew flax too.
and flax was grown here for spinning for yarn. And my mother went, "What the heck are you going backwards here? We know we can go to a store and buy a sweater, and you're wanting to spin yarn sheep." And sheep were really important from, as far as I know, that there have been sheep on the farm right from the beginning and right through. And for us, they provide some other processes of keeping good land in work. And with the excitement of Kirby being on board and sharing things that Howie and I are still working much of the fields and crop rotation and helping the 16th of February, Valentine's Day, how many lambs, do you remember? 16 in one day. and everybody is doing well, and it's just as exciting as ever, just as much as watching those seeds sprout in the ground. If it's in the ground or in the greenhouse, it has not gotten old for us at all. I have 7 brothers and sisters, and Peter right here, who's my first cousin, got to be as much a part of the farm when his dad and my dad were running the farm, and some of us had favorite things we liked to work on, and maybe some other things that weren't so favorite, but we all pitched in to make it work.
I don't know where the first house was.
So the first house for our family was right down by the farm stand. There are 2 quince trees that I don't know how many of you noticed, but right behind that, up by the maple tree, and there's a spring up there, the first 3 generations of Hurlbuts lived there. And that was, they were so busy farming that they put up the frame for the house we live in now, and it sat for 1 whole year without a frame on it. So you can imagine there's not a square room or a square wall in any part of the house. What would you like to tell them?
You're doing very well, you gotta keep doing.
There's too much.
So the farm had some proper, the original property was 44 acres. Maybe it was 6 acres to start, but it was 44. And then sometime before 1910, what's called the West Side Hill, the property that Peter owns now with his sister.
On Ranny.
Ranning Hill, that large field there, was added. And Lewis said it always bothered him that they paid for it 3 times over in mortgage. It took a long time to pay that off, but they added to the farm over the years.
That was all through several wars, which is very, very significant. And so up here, very much like today, actually, there's a lot of handwork that happens on a small farm like ours. And this is some of the early, on the very left, it's Alden, and then it's Henry in the tallest, and my dad Lewis, and I believe that this is Aunt Dorothy or Bibby. Are you going to say which one?
It's real hard to tell.
But everybody had a hoe in their hand, and most of the corn was raised for animals. And Kirby, Kirby and Sage, you can switch it. And so this was a particularly large harvest. And so all the family was involved in helping whatever needed to be helped with. And there were animals that were sold. This one, I believe, fed about 10 families, I think.
That was probably.
That was very.
Early on, just probably their own use. It's probably some overgrown pig that wasn't going to market. Going to use of it, so. Then in your grandfather's time, he started a bunch of egg groups.
But before there, really up until that time, the farm was really, again, about subsistence type farming. And this is my mom and my sister, who's right here.
Linda.
And that is when there was a little shift in the population in Roxbury. And it's really, really interesting. I encourage you all to check out how the population changed in Roxbury and why it changed. And at this time, there were people that started to come in that were not raising their own food. And there was a table that was put out on self-service at the bottom of the driveway. That's how it all started. And then soon after that, I don't know what's next. Go ahead. And so we, as I said, that we have primarily animals. My 4 older brothers and my brother David with his 7-Up cow on the end. But we were all involved in 4-H. It was imperative that all of us participated in the farm. And that was after we went to school, we all played in sports, we took care of our schoolwork, but then we started on the work on the farm. And that was expected of all of us. And we all came through really well. And we're all, almost all taught very well, and we Zoom every month. And there's 20 years difference between my eldest and youngest.
And I don't think they've run out of stories yet. But next slide is your father, and there's something I'm talking about Fridays and egg groups.
So, this is gonna be. So, when we bought the farm from my parents in 1980, there were about 12 to 1,400 chickens on the farm at that point. At the highest, there were 3,000. And that was, during that time, this area would not support the marketing of that.
And they were not only egg layers, there were chickens for meat, and there were other poultry. There was turkeys and geese and ducks. I mean, turkeys were a seasonal thing for Thanksgiving.
And so that was, well, every one of us on Saturdays were helping out with going to, it was either Danbury, Naugatuck, or Waterbury. And we had a regular route. And we were always, it was kind of hard to figure out, well, okay, I have these 2 baskets, and oh my gosh, I forgot to bring one, but we didn't use egg boxes at that time. And so we carried baskets of eggs, and we would get to a house, a 3-story house, and go, okay, wait a minute, how many dozen is the person on the 3rd floor gonna use? Do I go there first? Or do I
I want
go
to know
there
whether you had
last?
to carry the full basket up or try and make it last just perfectly, or run short and have to go all the way back to the truck and get another 5 eggs per dozen.
And it was typically only one of us that went, and Peter, you went to Waterbury, right?
For
And
12 years probably.
a couple of years, and,
12.
Well, 12! I said couple.
Because I fell in between the 4 brothers there were gone from the farm when I came along, so it all fell to me.
Oh, wait a minute, so Linda, you didn't do anything?
We all had our turns.
Yes, and one of the benefits of going and delivering all of this, there were several. We learned how to be independent, and my father would be going off one way, and one of us would be going off the other. We had to manage the money, and we had to think about what it was that we were taking with us, and we got to go out for lunch. Right? Peter, did you?
I ate in the finest establishments in Waterbury,
Frankie's?
before Frankie's.
Before Frankie's.
So something that was really significant about going on these routes, we were taking eggs and chickens to 1st generation populations from other countries. And I get chills thinking about this, of what I learned. And it was the first time I saw how pasta's made. And we'd be given treats, and we would learn a little bit of different languages. And then something even more important, my dad really wanted to reach out to people that didn't have much. And we delivered eggs off the back of the truck at the north end in Waterbury. And some of you might remember that at the north end was where the core of rioting happened. And I happened to be there with him that night when that happened. And but the most significant thing was he contacted people here in Roxbury and a little further around, broader, and got to help put together a lending
Credit.
institution for people that were being refused during that time. And that made a big impression on me. And I think that for other people growing up in Roxbury might not have had that experience. And I treasure it for how he broadened all of our sites in the world. Okay, Howie, did you want to talk?
So, next slide.
Oh my God.
1963.
And the farm stand, most of the buildings on the farm, we have a sawmill, and most of it's milled from trees right on the farm. There's the last barn's all oak. And my dad really wanted the building to look like a barn when it was closed up. All these shelves, at the end of the day, would just close up and it would just look like a barn. And during the winter time, this was all pretty much self-service and a wood stove going, and for people to walk in and get their own eggs. The only time it needed to be supervised was around Halloween. Because we used to sell cracked eggs, 25 cents a dozen. And my mother, for those of you who knew my mom, she was kind of a soft-spoken woman, and she just really would put her foot down about how many cracked egg dozens she was going to sell to these teenagers. And so this was the second farmhouse that was made, and that was built 1830. That was the one that doesn't have a straight corner anywhere. And and all of our brothers and sisters fit in the house, mostly. We always had neighbors by. It was, besides doing all the hard farm work, which it was, the friends that came to visit, we always found a way of having a good time of doing something. We would fit in a little baseball game on the field, or it was just a special place to be in our family. I never knew how challenged the economics for our family was. And we always had plenty to eat. Everyone was treated well, and I just would wish that for the world. Better go. Okay, Danbury Fair. And so, the Danbury Fair, the last Danbury Fair was in 1990, and as soon as...
No, 80.
86.
Thank you, whoever.
86.
Yeah.
And so as soon as the fair, each year it was finished, Ann Eleanor, Peter's mom, and my mom would be thinking about what the theme was gonna be for the next year. And to, go ahead, Sage. And so, by the way, it's grapes up in there, grapes and.
Go back one.
The grapes, and then the apples were cut out of Cortland apples and dipped in wax.
And then one thing, the red apples, they had a wagon to get them evenly red. You can't just put them out in the sunshine, but they would put them on a wagon underneath a tree where they had shade with intermittent sunshine, and they would turn them until they had red all over. And if you notice, to really score well, like all of them had to have stems, and you face the stems all the same direction as they go across. So they were other people growing other crops and demonstrating them. In the later years, you've got prize money, but mostly different farms took different aspects of the Big Ten. Big Top was it called?
Yes, and it was very significant in getting people to know who we were, and you can turn to the next one.
Oh, how about this?
And well,
There you go.
here are families that I'll bet some of you will recognize. So besides family members all being drawn in and to help with polishing the apples, you'll see Hodges and the Squires and Steers and
Right.
the Wrights, and let's see who I'm done missing. But
And they'll go there as not being.
yes, did I forget anybody?
No.
And Ann Cover, and so that was polishing. Plus, we grew all these pumpkins and squash, and they usually stayed there for the time of the fair, which is 2 weeks long. Okay.
And you had to go back and pause the dust out.
Okay. My younger sister Carolyn and her husband designed this one for this year, and as I say, that each year was a new theme. And we tried our best to make sure that we represented, okay?
That's Cathy's mother down there.
And my mom pretty much was one who managed the farm stand and would put things out for sale and often be there. And Peter's mom, she got to have to take care of all the books. And you can go ahead. And so we had, as I said, we had these shelves out with whatever we had growing at the time. At that time, there were not any greenhouses on the farm as there are now. You can go ahead. And lots of pigs. And there was one litter of pigs that, up in the barn, the fence, the board wasn't quite right. I look out there, and here is a whole, all the piglets, just the piglets, on our lawn, and in just half an hour, they have dug up half the lawn. And so, and then you would go out and yell, and they would just run right back out there to the barn. And my mom and dad continued to help out a lot on the farm after they retired. And we had a lot of strawberries. See those? There you go. And old Roxbury days, we did quite a bit of demonstrating of different things. Everybody pitched in, and Howie and my dad here were showing about how to, you would tell them about it?
Yeah, well, we cut some red pines off the property and brought them down to old Roxbury days. And Louis showed me about how to hew the logs into beams. And we use some of these beams for replacing parts in our barns that they need repair. We probably sold a couple to old Roxbury days too.
And Uncle Alden, and here, this is our sawmill. I'm sorry, I took a picture of a slide. But Peter's dad, for Old Roxbury Days show had great examples of all different kinds of equipment that was used in other times. But as I showed you, we still do a lot of handwork on the farm. And so down around the farm stand, you see one type of fence that was used. And this is my youngest brother, Tom.
He's putting some shorter poles for fence posts. Next slide. And then here's some black locust.
You should be able to, that's a video.
Oh yeah, you can maybe, can you make the video start?
So you know?
No, go back one, yeah. That Kirby might go. There we go.
So we've done this as a demonstration, and we've had 8-year-old kids that are able to make those rails. Supervised, of course. Do you want to talk about that?
There you go.
No, the
So
next one.
this is a black locust, and it's just like splitting firewood, except it's 11 feet long. Start at one end. And you just keep moving the wedges down. This is that was about an 8-inch log, and you can split it in half. There we go. Almost there. This only took like 5 minutes. It
Seriously?
took longer to look at the tree and figure out which ones we wanted to cut down. So.
But he does, he has a very good eye for what he's looking
And then
for.
typically, since we always need a little bit of repair, we would go into the woods and usually found some red oak, and these were some cedar trees with shorter ones for fence posts. And we'd bring them to the farm stand, do a little demonstration in November to keep the interest for people. And a lot of little kids would join in and try to help them crack through them. They don't help, they crack a log in there. Oh, there we go. Sage is our projector manager.
Okay,
Here.
just one minute, go ahead to the
Go ahead,
next.
Sage.
Ask me why. Took me a while.
He's dancing around. Okay. So just pause it.
I think, you can just- Yeah, there's the finished product put in place, and the sheep won't get over that fence today, but, every year they age a little bit, they need a little, shoring up, but they're not nailed together or anything, they're just held there by gravity, so we pull them apart and reorganize them and straighten them up. They're looking pretty good today too.
And that's why we don't have goats, because goats would make their way right over. And back in, we don't go forward easily on these slides, but this is my mom and Linnea, our daughter, and my parents and Howie's parents and all of our siblings really were instrumental in making the farm what it is today.
We took over operation in 1980 and we had Linnea in July. Here she is. She helped out a lot, man.
And notice the prices have changed a little bit. But it was back then and is still now just a wonderful feeling that we have with all of you. And we hope that that's something that continues. It's so important for this town.
So, late winter, late winter, February, March brings lambing season. And here we're making sure, we've milked some milk out of the mother, making sure they get the first milk from the sheep, the colostrum, which has all the antibodies to keep them healthy. And Cathy's parents, when we took over the farm, started building their house, a new house for them. Okay, next.
Where Kirby's living.
And
So
there's always some lambs to catch for little kids to pet or something, not sure why. I
we've
talked
got,
about that.
one of the things that we really enjoy is, bringing young kids, kindergarten age even, that get to experience different things on the farm. And one of the things is just being able to handle an animal. And there was a time way back when we had a dairy cow, and we would, yep.
Get a little ahead of yourself. Next slide. Here's some pictures of the sheep in springtime. Next one. Go ahead, let that run.
That's
Go
up.
back. Oh,
Can you go back to?
go back to, and see if you can, what
And just
happens.
like that. So, we make hay, and we, also have to supplement it with some other parts of Roxbury. And.
This is a pretty common scene, the little lambs will climb up on their mother's back, sometimes other mothers, and, it's a nice warm, comfortable spot, and the mothers are pretty powerful.
And it never gets old, with, the flocks of lambs and, having them run around. It's a real joy.
And here's a orphan lamb that we were taking care of in the house. He's got
With a diaper.
Diaper on it. And the cat was not pleased to have that occupied by the lamb. But
Earlier on, as I mentioned, we still feel, we just feel it's important that we bring as much of the farm to all of you as we can. And this is a kindergarten class. As you can see, some of them are very excited. They're all gonna get a chance to have a glass of cider, after finish, grinding up the apples. And, here they've got, plants that they're, planting up that they're gonna take home. I've had children that know that from this community, and they start to plant the plant upside down. So you see, everyone still really needs a little bit of help, and they're excited and proud. We've got, one other thing that has been important is that Howie and I feel family's important before the farm work, and also we split up, the duties of the farm, and we overlap, and, just,
we'll ask each other, what do you think of this? Are you crazy? Okay, maybe, we'll try it.
and,
In springtime shearing time, I've sheared sheep for many, many years until just recently. I actually sheared this last year, but, so we've had up to 60 sheep, and, it's a tough on your back job. Anyway, and we've had different crops to the farm. These are peaches that we grew in the, well, I guess it was the mid-19, Cathy's father always had a few peach trees, like 3 or 4 mixed into the apple. But we planted about 100 of them. And that was a good crop for a while. Peaches last about 15 years, good useful life on them. And we had so many enterprises going, it was something a little, we were having a hard time keeping up with everything, with the orchards. So we cut the peaches out, and
that's one of the things that we've been, talking with Kirby so much, is that he is as excited as we are about all the things that can be done. The farm is just a very exciting place that has a potential to, develop in, any single area that, you pick. And it's a challenge to, decide what it is that you're able to manage. So our board, before the internet, our board, like the one that was over there, we have had the behind the farm, the checkout, and just trying to bring something that's happening on the farm that's of interest that you wouldn't normally get to know about. And so we said, well, what are all the birds that Howie and I have personally seen. And we have seen all of those. And that's over 70. But, so now we have I've taken a picture of it, so now we could clean it off and put another message in.
Alright. So, as the peaches came and went, crop that we had known about, in the early 80s was arugula and salad mix. Oh, can you have that one a little bit? Yeah. I'll have to narrate because the sound doesn't come through. So I'm cutting some tatsoi. Go back to the same. Keep it stay there. Cutting some tatsoi, arugula, mizuna, and Cathy's brother David, who lives in California, was helping me. And this is a crop that we could sow every week from beginning of May to the end of September. All right.
And Uncle Alden, Peter's dad, was really very good at grafting trees. And so you thought this was which was a...
It's grafting either some opalescence or some Roxbury russets from the old orchard into the young orchard. And he's showing me how to do it. And this is on a Macintosh tree, which we might have excess trees of. And so you can put a couple different varieties on one tree, and because it's just coming from the wood. There's probably 2 or 3 buds on this wood that will grow out of there. And later on, he'll wrap it with wax to keep it from drying out, and it happens in the springtime.
Now in the wintertime,
In the wintertime, Cathy's in the greenhouse. She makes me go out and prune. Ready? Oh no, the fans need fixing, so I can go inside. But it was just a nice snowy picture of the apple tree, and I won't prune when there's that much snow on it.
one year you used snowshoes.
Yeah, one year there was so much. The year all the barns were falling down. I actually went on snowshoes and I pruned what I could from the ground until the snow melted down. There was like 20 inches of snow in the orchard. It was just miserable to move it. So I put this one up here. This is a big old Cortland tree in the old orchard, and to show before and after pruning. This is a lot of new growth from 1 year. And next slide. And here's after it's been pruned. And it could even be pruned a little. It's not maybe finished pruning up in here, but look at all the brush on the ground. These trees, we probably take off 25 to 30% of the young growth is in the wrong position on trees. And then it has to be pulled out from one of the trees. Then we take a tractor and push it down the rows in a big pile and burn it. And then sometimes we do a little chainsaw work to go through and get rid of some of the bigger branches first, and then we back to loppers and hand pruners. And it's trying to make use of good days in the wintertime. I always say that there's enough good days.
Could you go back to that one?
Yeah, there's enough good days to get your pruning done, but if you don't take advantage of all of them, sometimes you're pruning on some nasty days.
Is it possible to just?
It's okay. That one's got a lot of chainsaw. And for over on the other side of Randy Hill.
Well, just a second, before you start that,
Right.
I just want to say that the farm is really more centered on 2 pieces of property right now. But before we were using the land down the valley, we used little bits of farmland all over Roxbury. And as it happened, we had use of an orchard that was planted to all Macintosh. And trees cannot, they have to be cross-pollinated.
Right. So we, and at one time there was enough wild trees around, but then as the woods grew up and there was less trees in people's yards within reach of these trees for the bees to bring pollen over, they were having poor pollination. So we bought pollen from out west. I think it's called delicious pollen. And we put it in the front of the beehives that were on the edge of the orchard, and that's why the bees came and went. They would drag pollen to the apple trees, and pollen.
These are actually 2 different varieties that I'm looking at. You can just see the age of the bloom, that it's significant all through the whole year, paying attention to how far along, or how long it takes for different varieties of apples to grow and be harvested.
They have actually different seasons for blooming and for harvest. So here's, after a successful, most of the apples are off the tree, but these are some awfully nice looking golden delicious here.
And the bucket that, that Howie uses, you go up, and some people go up and fill this more than others. And so that when it's full, we go over, and Teddy's back here, who works on the farm, is particularly good about bending down nice and low, and they go into a box, no bruises.
Show them how the bottom of so.
Here, I'll let you put this on.
Pretty, like this, usually. And then you fill it up, and then you lean down into a box at the bottom. You go lay this all in the bottom, then you let the canvas down, and then you slide the box real gently, and they just gently roll out. And up and down the ladder again. Good person can pick 10 boxes an hour.
And so the apples, after they've been harvested, it's important to keep them about 33 to 35 degrees, so that they hold a really nice long time. Before cold storage was, before the electricity for having cold storage, apples were stored in barrels. And there are varieties that are on the farm that are particularly good tasting, that when they've had no refrigeration, and they're further along as far as age goes.
Yeah, there was a variety called Ben Davis, and Lewis always said, doesn't taste that good, but you could, in the old days, you could put it on a barrel and it would ride on a railroad car to Florida, and it didn't taste any worse. But it's actually one of the parents of the Courtney, Ben Davis and the manufacturer across from Cortland Apples, which is a terrific apple now. You never know what you're gonna get.
And Howie has helped people learn how to make a great apple pie. And he did this at the farm stand, yes. The only disappointment was that when he was giving the demonstration, it didn't get baked.
We're gonna eat it.
But, and that's what the farm stand is so wonderful for us and for everyone who comes in, to share their recipes and things that they like to grow. And it certainly has had an effect on what it is that we end up growing.
So wintertime is time for some repairs, putting new plastic on greenhouses. Our friend Willie, who was living in town at the time, and that's our new secretary of the town, Sarah Maynard. Come on. I'm not sure who is that with.
The one with her back is Cathy.
Is that Catherine? I think that's Catherine.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because when you're putting plastic on, it's like 30 by 100. If any wind, it just wants to blow away. So you need a lot of hands just to hold it down for half an hour.
All right, you better keep going. We're gonna. And so we have help. When sometimes you just have to pay attention. It's not just about us, but so these two little things came up, and they were squash, and they were talking to each other, and we just had to listen. And it's true on the farm. It's paying attention to all, and it's pretty wonderful. So in the greenhouse, here you go. You can keep going through all of these, and it's such a joyful place while Howie's out in the cold. And one of the things that I learned about at the beginning, you can keep going, is about using the computer and about databases. And it was critical for me.
Our grandchild helping out.
But
That's
just
Kennedy.
the growth that we've had, with machines and that database helped me know what it was in that week that I needed to have planted, because we grew, how many, 160 varieties of flowers, and over 30 varieties of herbs, and 120 varieties of vegetables. And I'm talking about, I divided up depending on colors, and then, let's see, what else did we put in there? And so it was so much to keep track of it, and it's just very exciting to have a computer helping me. So I would know what
If
I
I
was
wanted
supposed to do.
plants for the vegetable field, I had to tell it what I wanted, and if I didn't enter them right, I didn't get them.
And so our field flowers up by the house, we had 7 rows, and when we're out there, we go across the whole 7 rows, and every single bloom gets picked. It's either goes into a bouquet or it goes on the ground to encourage the plant to continue to produce. But look at the joy. Someone asked me once, just recently, just like a year ago, when I showed up with a bunch of plants, oh my gosh, don't you get tired of that? Not once had I ever felt that way.
No, keep cutting, she says, keep cutting.
Keep going. And you can keep going. And there's one guy who's pretty happy. So, something that shifted, we had the farm stand, and then we were invited to be part of a farmer's market, which we thought, how can we possibly do anything more? And what it turned out to be that our, when we had things in such multiple supply, that we decided we could take a little bit of what we've got and sell it there. And the farm stand, Roxbury always comes first. That it was never that the farmer's market took everything. We wanted to make sure that the community here knew that you could count on us. But 4 of us would go to the market, and it would be very, very busy. We might have 25, 26 people in line, and everyone is sharing recipes and all excited. And I thought, oh, but there's still, this is a long line. We had 2 checkouts. I just gathered up a whole pile of sunflowers, and I went down that line, and I said, are you happy to be here? And the one man says, no. And I said, well, then you really need it. But
So we would, toward the end of the week, we would make sure we harvest more for the farmer's market, and then we load the truck at 6 in the morning, get to the market, and be set up to sell by 9, and went from 9 to 1, and then the crew came home very tired. So in 1995, I'm pretty sure that's the right date, we worked with a land trust to purchase the land in the valley by the Chippewa River across from Hyde Park.
Howie?
Yeah.
Sorry, some machine kept on back there, we couldn't hear the last thing you said.
So in 1995, we purchased the land in the valley with the Roxbury Land Trust from John Nye, who was moving his cows from Washington to Utah. And he had purchased this land from Sanford Smith in Roxbury and had raised cow corn on it for years. And we were very interested in it because it's some of the best farmland in Connecticut, especially in western Connecticut. We got a lot of hills here. And so we worked with the land trust instead of bidding against each other, and we divided the land in half. We have 28.5 acres, and they have the other 28.5 acres. And they have a right for a walkway next to the river, and it's gotta be preserved for farmland forever too. So, and this is the crew just set down some more plants. They can plant 3 people can do 1,200 plants in an hour.
And so one of the things is, it's another example about our community and about how we can work together, and it's a very exciting thing for us, and there are a lot of new people who have moved, into it, and I think they'll soon realize what a real treasure where they live now.
More transplant, there's a garland, and making sure they did it right. You gotta follow behind. There's Teddy, there.
One of the first.
Star radish harvester.
And so if there are some things, we're trying to fit a lot in here, but if there are some things that anybody's interested in, please,
That's all
ask.
arugula right there. You go back one slide. So here's, you see here, probably behind him is the old bed, the one they're cutting down, and probably the one that was planted, week before it. Takes about 3 weeks.
It's important in this very big field that we have good crop rotation. That helps with weed control.
Rachel Murray and Kelly, Rachel Murray, Kelly Murphy on the transplanter, putting on squash.
And recipes, that, what we learn, but our family has had squash blossom pancakes forever, right, Linda? And, so we get to share with pictures at the farm stand, and then voila, the internet. That was very, helpful to us to be able to share messages better, sometimes maybe when certain crops are gonna be harvested, or recipes, and, I was known for, misstating things or posting it incorrectly, but I didn't really care, I just. Right, Kirby? I'm not posting.
When we
anymore.
passed by the apple, Sage running the projector helped me pick a lot of apples this year. First time he picked apple, he is an excellent apple. More transplanting and more harvesting. There's our son Christopher, who, with all his disability, he loves going to the field and loves picking beans and other things that are his specialty.
So, sometimes it's just, you have to open your mind to be thinking about different way of doing things. And he's sitting on a milk crate, and we're pulling the bean pans up to give to him. And so there have been times when he's been able to walk, and other times that he hasn't been able to walk. But to be a part of things has just meant so much. And I was called out one day at the farm stand. He was taking care of the cash register, and someone that I didn't know was ready to check out, and Christopher wasn't working very fast, and I stepped in and said, Christopher, let me do that. And the customer said, what are you doing? He's doing just fine. Leave him alone. And so it's been the farm has just been a wonderful family thing for all of us. And go ahead. And he's here using a walker. Howie built a new kind of walker that has huge wheels so that he can get out there easily, and it has a seat. And then we have characters at the farm stand.
Everybody know him? Marty.
We've had over 120 people work for us over the past 40 years, and they've, what I keep hearing over and over again is that they learn about working together as a team, and that they carry that on to wherever they go from the farm. And we have people in all walks of life, and I just couldn't be more proud, and we keep in contact with many, and we just went to a wedding up in Maine for someone who's now a doctor.
Sweet potatoes, they're planted, they're a warm season crop, but we can't grow them here, so they're planted when it turns warm about the 1st of June, and they grow all the way to the end of September until just before frost.
And this is our son.
Don't wait till 7, but.
So it's very, he's, Christopher has very poor vision, and he has a hard time managing that. He just moved to a group home, and but the wonderful thing about the internet he's able to use an iPad now, and we keep in very close
He's
contact.
probably gonna call Linda next.
And Renee,
Maybe he'll call my sister in Vermont.
he's a great crossword puzzler, and so he loves to share that with anyone who wants to. Having fun on the farm is important. It's not all work, and it's sharing fun times like this that make it just, it needs to be, we've always felt it should be a part of it.
Washing after harvesting. This is a video, you can make it run.
Here's an example of new equipment. This is from Italy. Maybe. And anyway, this is,
It's a potato digger, and it shakes the dirt out, and all the potatoes go off the side. It's pretty impressive. So there's the farmers' conferences that go to in the wintertime. This company was selling these. They're from Italy and other small countries in Europe where they still have some small farms, more small farms than here. And so this equipment is sized for small farmers. That's Kirby on the tractor. Actually, it's a modern throw with this stuff. We'll just go next. Here's back in 1980s when we started growing tomatoes in the greenhouse.
and one of the things that's wonderful about using a cover these days, things that have changed, and that's the thing, is keeping up with, keeping an open mind to see what it is that you are doing and how. And one of the things about tomatoes is that they don't benefit from having rainfall fall on them. You need to water them. You don't want them to get any fungal problems. And
if their leaves don't stay wet, they don't get fungal problems.
And so there's no spraying on them, and there is one thing though, when they start out, tomato plants really need to be wind harvested. So we go down and wind pollinated, sorry. And so we go along at the end, in the day when the plants have dried off, and tap those lines so that the pollen is all going into each.
Makes the blossoms vibrate a little bit.
Okay. And that was way back in the beginning with growing tomatoes in the greenhouse.
Here's Cathy. She's raking the hay because we need to put up hay for the sheep for the winter time. Beautiful picture of hay bales in the field. Don't take the picture. And Cathy's smiling because she's driving the wagon.
And here is our grandson ready to telling his mother, I really can do this, I don't need your help. Wasn't that what you were saying? Yeah, that's absolutely.
Probably what he's saying.
And at time, as we mentioned before, whenever Christopher was able to do things, we were sure that we made an opportunity for him to do what he could do. And he keeps track of what everybody on the farm is doing now and how they're doing it, and are they doing it right.
Here we're cut some straw, we're mulching some tomatoes.
And the winter time, when besides all the bookkeeping and everything else you're catching up with, there are conferences and talks around the state and around New England that farmers can go to share ideas and learn possibly another way to do something that's just helpful on maple land.
Just more sheet pictures. So here's we're planting potatoes here, and the orchard behind you. You see it's in early May, apple blossoms are. But see if you can make it go.
This is a good, the next one is a good.
Oh, next one, actually the next one in the video.
And
Here we go.
so this machine behind is with the iron tires.
Probably from the 1950s.
And you'll be able to see the potatoes are all cut up into pieces before going into this machine. And a person sits Okay,
Get to the end of it, maybe. I don't know.
on the back, and, making
Picks up-
sure.
Picks up
Oh, it says
potatoes
dry.
and it
Okay.
drops into a furrow and then covers them up. And it's from a 1960s piece of machine, it has so many moving parts, I don't know what they were thinking, but. So this is potatoes probably, 6 weeks after planting, and they get hilled with some discs and to protect the tuber from getting green from sunlight on them. But nice crop of potatoes, they're all just strictly hilled.
And it's a joy, it really is a joy, with harvesting, going out after all that setup and plants growing, and to fill up all the boxes, it's, and make sure they come to everybody ripe. So
And
often
they're
things
picked
that
right,
are, yeah, that
But
they're,
some people are like, well, green potatoes don't taste that well, good, so they don't taste so well if you pick them kind of green, so if you pick them right and handle them carefully. That was 10 years ago, and another 7 years will be 300 years here. That's Flynn.
old Roxbury. And like I said, we always find some fun things to do and, just find joy in what it is. And you can see, it's a joyous team.
We have several, like, crew pictures every year. At the farmer's market again, sharing recipes there. And who's that young man? He says college, maybe. High school? College.
Okay.
And everybody's always happy at that harvest.
And silly.
I was always in charge of the corn and, worked at planting it pretty often to try and keep it at just the right stage for the farm.
About every 5 days.
There's Flynn again, came down one morning early with me to harvest and gave him the knife and everything and let him go at it. Piece of potatoes from the field. And in 2020, we did a preservation, project with, state of Connecticut. So the farmland's been preserved forever, for next generations to come.
So it will never, you'll never see it divided up into house lots. It's, important that Kirby's able to come and farm, and you're gonna just, I'm sure you're all thrilled now, as we are. And we just are ready for him, with anything that he has questions about and, sharing. It's, we're all very, very fortunate.
And the season is, Christmas trees, wreaths, and, finishing up selling all our restaurant produce. And more
And-
pictures of the family having fun.
Yes. Okay. And Kirby,
Yeah.
take it away.